How do I defend myself and my children against two guys who have AR-15s? Tell me how. And you said yourself that the police may not make it there in time. Tell me how.
You know what? The best chance you got in a situation like that is to get out the house.
She just stated that
so
they reach
30
far.
rounds a piece? That's 90 rounds of bullets firing through the home.
You think I can outrun that?
You need to get out of the house.
Oh, sir, I stand my ground. Sorry.
Wow. Telling someone who's being home invaded by two guys with AR-15s to get out of the house is wild. And it's also stupid. So what would you tell her to do if she can't get out of the house? The only thing he can tell her to do is fight back, which is why she would need an AR-15, because in that situation, that would be the most effective tool for the job.
I don't have any skin in the game. I don't own guns. So as far as 2A goes, I do not feel like that is a right that I personally want to protect or defend.
This is why I say the best way to protect the Second Amendment is to create gun owners. A lot of people who vote for gun control only do so because they don't own guns. So they don't feel like they're losing anything. But once someone does become a gun owner, generally, they will be way more inclined to protect the right because now they have something to lose.
I feel very conflicted about the Second Amendment. At the end of the day, when we talk about the Constitution as like this sacred document, I mean, it was written by a bunch of rich white guys who owned slaves, didn't let women vote, and thought the Electoral College was a good idea. So maybe it's not a perfect document, and we should kind of update it as time progresses.
You know, I find it funny that this guy says he's conflicted about the Constitution because it was written by rich white slave owners who were misogynistic, while literally sitting on a panel where two black women are defending their right to own guns under the Second Amendment. There's nothing to update. The language is clear as day. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It didn't say old rich white guys. It said people.
As a survivor of gun violence, I can't help but to think about how many people have been lost because of this perceived right or this outdated document. I feel like this debate around the Second Amendment is oversimplifying a really serious and complex issue. And unfortunately, there's too many privileged individuals having these debates, making these decisions who aren't feeling the pain of what gun violence in our country has done to us.
What's so funny is that it's the privileged people who can afford armed guards and live in gated communities that are pushing for gun control the most. Now, if by privilege you mean people who haven't been a victim of gun violence, well, the whole point of people wanting guns is to prevent becoming a victim of gun violence or violence in general. You see, you being a victim of gun violence doesn't make you subject matter experts on the gun debate any more than someone who has been hit by a drunk driver is a subject matter expert on car safety. Now, I don't say that to belittle your experience. I simply say that in that I understand why you may feel the way that you feel, but people who haven't been in those situations also feel a certain type of way because they're trying to prevent the very thing that you went through. That said, every year, 30 to 40,000 people die every year due to gun violence. However, 60,000 to 2.5 million people use guns every year to save lives. The debate over the Second Amendment isn't oversimplifying a complex issue. The debate is being used by the gun control lobby to avoid dealing with the root causes of the issue. The vast majority of gun violence in this country is due to drug and gang violence in our inner cities. I've broken this down numerous times in old videos. On average, 25% of all gun murders in America take place in 4 cities: Chicago, Baltimore, Detroit, and Washington, D.C. Now ask yourself this question. From a socioeconomic standpoint, what do all of these cities have in common? Each of these cities have well-known areas where the vast majority of their violence is concentrated in poverty-stricken, underdeveloped neighborhoods who have had the same leadership and power for decades that refuse to do anything to address the socioeconomic issues in these places. And no, it's not just a black culture thing. I know a ton of black families who live in the suburbs and their kids aren't doing drive-bys in their BMWs. It's prolonged exposure to poverty that facilitates the violence in these neighborhoods. And even then, it's a small group of people committing the majority of the violence in these neighborhoods. If the leaders of these areas really wanted to stop the violence, instead of ignoring it on non-election years, only to exploit it for votes during election years, they would, and they can, but they gain and maintain more control in treating the symptom than they do providing the cure, so they don't.
We're in a world where we are literally out-arming who's supposed to be protecting us. And it's all coming from a place of fear. If we're thinking about how to protect our homes or to protect our families, there are better, lower risk ways to do that. And as someone who's been shot, having a gun on me would have not saved my life. If anything, it would have cost me my life, because it gives you this false concept of confidence in a life or death situation when your first instinct should be to flee or evade.
Speak for yourself. It may give you a false sense of confidence, but it doesn't give me a false sense of confidence. I know it doesn't give a false sense of confidence to other people that I know that own firearms, because to us, the gun is simply an option. It's a tool in a bag of possible means of protecting ourselves. I don't do anything with a gun that I wouldn't do without a gun. Anyone who has done any amount of self-defense training with a gun knows you can't outdraw a gun that's already drawn on you. That's not a gun issue. It's an issue about tactics. And if you want to use less than lethal means to protect yourself, by all means, dude, go ahead. But no one is forcing you to own a gun. But as long as criminals are using guns to victimize people, I'll be carrying my gun to protect myself against those criminals. As for this idea that we should always flee, if you're with your family and you all are attacked, you're gonna flee and leave your wife and kids to fend for themselves? Man, I hope this guy doesn't have a wife and kids if that's going to be the mentality that he has. The whole point of having a gun is because you don't always have the option to flee. So you have something that evens the playing field.
Other cost-effective ways to defend yourself.
Well, when we think about defending your home or your body or from harm or assault, the most impactful thing you can have is a known deterrent. A gun is not a known deterrent.
What? Is this guy trolling us at this point? Google homeowner shoots intruder and then come back and tell me a gun is not a deterrent. The very purpose of the Second Amendment was to be a deterrent to a government being tyrannical. If guns aren't a deterrent, what do you call 60,000 to 2.5 million people using a gun in self-defense, with most of those situations not even resulting in shots being fired? Sounds like a whole lot of deterrence to me.
And so when we think about keeping our home safe, specifically simple things like having a dog, having the lights on, having a fence, having a security system, a security camera is more effective at protecting your home.
This guy lives in a fantasy world, which is weird to me because he's actually been shot before. Everything he named are passive defense systems. Yes, even the dog. Dogs aren't bulletproof. Criminals won't hesitate to shoot a dog. They can be great early warning systems that allow you to get to your gun faster, the same way an alarm system is a great way to let you know quicker that there's somebody in your house so you can get to your gun quicker. Unless there's some new AI ChatGPT alarm system that vaporizes intruders the moment they enter the home that I'm not aware of, I'm sorry, but all of the measures that you've demonstrated are merely passive, can easily be defeated, and at some point, you're gonna have to actually actively protect yourself.
We've created this image in America, and I partially blame the media, that violence in Black communities is a result of criminal activity, when in reality, most situations are interpersonal conflicts that are not connected to another felony. And that false sense of having a firearm will make me safer turns what would have been a fist fight, an argument, into something that causes someone their life.
No one says the violence in the Black community is due to criminal activity. They say the violence in the inner city is due to criminal activity. All Black people don't live in the inner city. Take Atlanta, for example. Only 12% of the Atlanta metropolitan area's Black residents live inside of the city of Atlanta. Personal disputes may be the driver of gun violence in Black communities outside the inner city, but the violence in the inner city is very much driven by criminal activity. Shooting someone because they're from another gang or another neighborhood is criminal activity. That doesn't happen outside of the inner city.
Move your finger and you end a human life. That's a responsibility that we should take a lot more seriously in this country. You get convicted of domestic violence. No guns for you. Universal background checks, I think, would be a great idea. And I think the idea that we don't treat something that was created for killing people with that kind of respect is a really weird disconnect in this country.
Honestly, he just said a whole bunch of nothing. Who doesn't take firearm ownership seriously? We all take it serious. That's why we go to train. That's why we're on YouTube watching gun videos to learn about the guns we want and the ones we just bought. You have gun organizations that have entire programs dedicated to gun safety for children. You have trainers whose only job it is to teach people to be better gun owners. There are entire online gun communities dedicated to informing new gun owners on what to do and how to be safe gun owners. There's organizations and memberships like USCCA which focus on teaching people when it is okay to shoot in self-defense while also providing lawyers to help people navigate the legal world of firearm ownership. Trust me, brother. We take guns very serious.
In America, the two solutions that are introduced are too heavily focused on the individual and the gun. But a solution we never introduce is regulating the gun industry and the profiteers of massive amount of weapons being introduced into America. And I think that's something that in America we're not talking about. We're not talking about how do we hold the profiteers, the gun capitalists accountable in this conversation.
What the hell is a gun capitalist? I honestly can't stand when people string together a bunch of empty corporate bird brain babble words to make it seem like they know what they're talking about, when in reality, they have no idea what they're talking about. The gun industry is the most regulated industry in the country. There are more than 20,000 gun laws on the books. They can't even sell automatic weapons to citizens. They have to have special licenses and pay fees just to function as a business. The ATF is constantly auditing gun manufacturers where they have to give an account for every single gun they've sold. If a defective gun hurts someone, you can sue the company out of existence. Gun manufacturers aren't selling guns to criminals. Basically, what she wants is for gun manufacturers to stop making guns.
The background check system does save lives, and I think there are some tragedies that could have been avoided if we had a stronger background check system. Charleston, for example, a young man applied for the background check. After the deadline, they said, okay, well, we haven't seen any flags yet. Go ahead and purchase the firearm, and he went into a church and slaughtered black folks.
No. We are not gonna do that. The background check system had nothing to do with why the Charleston shooter was able to get a gun. It had everything to do with government incompetence. I did a whole video about it where I said this.
In Charleston, by law, had to wait 3 days before buying the handgun. Time for the FBI to run a background check. That check revealed a drug charge, so the FBI employee kept digging, but called the wrong police agency in South Carolina. Had that employee called the right one, they would have discovered Roof admitted to possessing the drug, which should have disqualified him from buying a weapon.
Oh, and it gets worse before it gets worse. Even if they had called the right police department, he was arrested for a misdemeanor, not a felony. And even though he admitted to being in possession of the drugs, simply being in possession of drugs does not make you an unlawful user as required by federal law to deny someone the ability to buy a gun. Hell, even the ATF at the time said it. Current and former ATF officials say a single misdemeanor arrest for possession of a controlled substance would not be disqualifying. The federal courts, these officials say, have tended to be strict in interpreting unlawful user, and as a consequence, this provision is not often enforced. Honestly, I hate the fact that I even have to make this argument in defense of such a disgusting human. But the truth is what the truth is. And the truth is, he was able to buy that gun because the government failed, which it does a lot. And is also the reason why I refuse to give up any of my 2A rights, because it would require me to depend on the government to keep me safe when they can't even call the right police department.
And I do think that there's real questions about bias and how these systems are applied and what the different flags look like. And I really think we have to get more focused on what is the goal here. Is the goal to preserve some perceived right, or is the goal to save lives?
Actually, the goal is to preserve our 2A rights because it saves lives.
Those laws exist to try to take the gun away from that person before they commit a crime. How do we feel about that?
I'm pretty pro red flag laws. I understand that these laws should be implemented very carefully. There's a lot that goes into the rules portion of passing these bills that should be very well thought out. But I think the overarching question needs to become, do you agree that people who are in certain situations should have guns or not? But I personally think that there are characteristics you can meet, there are situations you can be in where, yeah, I do not want you owning a gun.
I'm not a fan of red flag laws because by their very nature, there's no way to enforce them without violating someone's constitutional rights, i.e. due process. The only people who don't have a problem with red flag laws are people who see the right to own a gun as a privilege, even if they say they don't. You can't strip someone of their constitutional right, i.e. the right to own a firearm, without due process of the law. If someone is a danger to themselves or has committed a crime, we have legal processes in this country to have those people committed or put in jail and convicted of a crime. If you ask me, red flag laws are merely a way to take someone's guns away without due process of the law, simply because some vindictive girlfriend ran to a judge claiming you were crazy out of spite.
Laws exist. The question is more so, will the United States of America actually enforce the law the way it needs to be enforced? And no, the United States will not.
I'm curious, who are the people who you think shouldn't have guns? You say there are certain people. What do you have in mind?
Well, I certainly think plenty of right-wing ideologues should not have guns. I think plenty of violently anti-trans people should not have guns. I think violent misogynists should not have guns. I think violent racists should not have guns. I think those who have the audacity to believe in ideology that is, in fact, an incredible danger to most of us who are in society that do not look like them should not have access to guns.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly why I'm against red flag laws. Because the type of people who will file red flag laws against you will do so simply because you have a different political belief. Notice, she didn't say anything about far left extremists. Everything was about right-wing people. The Second Amendment is not a right to people like her. It is a privilege to her that she believes the people who share her political ideologies should be able to dictate who gets to have them or not. Being a racist doesn't void your constitutional rights. Being a misogynist doesn't void your constitutional rights. Being a far right-wing extremist doesn't void your constitutional rights. The Second Amendment was literally written because of people who think like her. Left to her, you wouldn't be able to own a home, much less a gun, if you didn't share her political beliefs.
Who are you trying to defend yourself from with an AR-15?
I can
A
answer
zombie
that.
apocalypse?
Anyone.
Someone else with an AR-15.
This guy literally said that he has been shot before, that he almost died. And yet the idea that somebody would have an AR-15 to protect themselves against somebody who might try to shoot them is bizarre to him. I'm pretty sure he hasn't gone online and seen the multitudes of videos of people using AR-15s to defend themselves. It's not like we're theorizing here. It is blatantly in front of us. It's in our face. We see it all the time.
You don't like them, that's great. Don't buy them.
That's not how it works, though. You only need to get hit with one bullet to die. Just because someone has an AR doesn't mean I got one, we're equal or on the same playing field.
That's exactly what it means. If somebody has an AR-15 and I don't, it's not equal. If somebody has an AR-15 and I have an AR-15, it's equal. The AR-15 does a better job at me defending myself against somebody with an AR-15 because I'm aware of the capabilities of the AR-15 towards me if I don't have one.
I think if someone in the Tops grocery store in Buffalo had an AR-15, that would have not saved lives. If anything, it would have harmed more people.
That is honestly, undeniably the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That is literally the equivalent of if somebody shows up in an AR-15 and starts shooting people. If the cops arrived with their AR-15s, it wouldn't have done anything. It would have made it worse. That's how dumb that statement is. But yet he truly believes it with his heart. Or, and you'll get this sometimes with people who you're having a conversation with who are really honestly just trying to win the conversation and not really trying to understand what's being said. He's just making an argument to try to win it. That's simply what it is. Because no human in their right mind, nobody in that Tops grocery store who had the capability, if they had at that moment to have an AR-15, would say, no, I don't want an AR-15 right now, considering there's a guy with an AR-15 shooting at people indiscriminately.
You're describing in a way sounds like an arms race, where if someone else has an AR-15, therefore I need an AR-15. And that the end game is that everyone has an AR-15, right?
Honestly, you can call it what you want. You can call it an arms race, a bike race, a pillow fight. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, there are people in this country, there are people in this world who don't care about your ideologies. If somebody's trying to kill me with an AR-15, logic dictates I need something that's equal or more than what that person is trying to kill me with, because I need to win, because I want to live. Calling it an arms race is this kind of hyperbolic statement to make it seem like it's absurd. It may be absurd, but it is your reality. There are criminals out there who want to kill you. So you need what you need to protect yourself. Call it an arms race. Call it a dog race. It doesn't matter. Your job is to protect yourself, your family, and the people that you love. That's all that matters.
Why the specific feeling towards the AR-15 and not a handgun with a 30-round magazine, which do exist?
I have the same sentiments for that,
So you feel equally about both?
Yeah, I think we are in a world where we're creating these weapons that are literally built for mass fatalities, and we're encouraging that?
No, what we're encouraging is people being empowered to be able to protect themselves against the psychopaths, against the criminals, against the evil people who are running around trying to attack us, who are trying to attack other people. That's what we're encouraging. We're empowering people.
The culture that y'all are buying into or encouraging is the same culture that armed the shooter at Tops. It's the same sentiment that armed the shooter in Atlanta.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's the same sentiment that, oh, we should have these guns. So what's the difference between that shooter and just someone else?
Honestly, at this point, I think he's purposely on this panel to be a contrarian. I think that's his only job and his only goal. I don't think it was really to have a real conversation because nothing he's saying is making any sense. The fact that he can't distinguish between a law-abiding citizen or someone or a woman having a firearm to protect themselves against a criminal or someone who decides to want to go out and commit a mass murder is insanity to me. But like I said, I think he's purposely trying to be a contrarian. And if he's not, this is the very reason why we don't want to leave this idea of our right to own firearms to the subjective standards of people who don't believe we should have them in the first place. And again, when we have these conversations, we have to understand that the inherent goal for a lot of people who are arguing on the other side of this, that their inherent goal is they don't want guns, period. And so everything they do is going to be designed, designated towards how do we get rid of them. That's it. He's not proffered any solutions. He hasn't given any logical advice about how to deal with any of these issues. Everything he's been talking about has been fairy pie in the sky theorizing nonsense.
Question, if we get rid of AR-15s for law-abiding citizens, how do we defend ourselves when those two guys, and don't say that's not probable because 2 guys is more probable than 30 guys to kick in your door. How do I defend myself and my children against those 2 guys who have AR-15s? Tell me how. And you said yourself that the police may not make it there in time. Tell me how I defend myself.
The best chance you got in a situation like that is to get out the house.
And
if you're going to have a shootout with 2 people with AR-15s and your children at home?
She just stated that
so
they
what is that,
reach
30
far.
rounds a piece? That's 90 rounds of bullets firing through the home?
And you think I can outrun that?
You need to get out of the house.
Oh, sir, I stand my ground, sorry.
You got a better chance of jumping out that window than having a shootout with 2 AR-15s.
Everyone here in this particular conversation is trying to have genuine conversations. And he's sitting here telling a woman who is at home and 2 guys with AR-15s kicking her door that she needs to leave the house. This is the same guy who said with his own mouth that you can't rely on the police to get there in time because the police couldn't get there in time to save him when he was shot, or couldn't get there in time to prevent him from being shot. But yet now he's sitting here telling us that if 2 guys with AR-15s kick in the door of a woman who's at home, she should leave. Because the idea of her having an AR-15 and actually fighting back against the people who are in her home is more dangerous because there are kids than to simply try to leave. He doesn't even factor in the idea that they may not be able to leave. She may not be able to get out of the house. And that's the thing I'm getting at. He is not having this argument in reality. He is having this argument in ideology. And once you are talking to someone who is having the argument simply and purely in ideology, the conversation is over. There's nothing to be said. It won't go anywhere because they're not being genuine. It is intellectually dishonest.
Okay, if more guns, not the solution, is less guns a solution?
No, certainly not. And I think, a huge part of this that we have to, consider is, in fact, the economic considerations. The solution is, in fact, to hold the gun industry accountable for their marketing of violence. And so we can't continue to point fingers at the individuals who wish to have such self-determination and self-defense. We need to begin pointing fingers at systems and economic industries that have been so responsible for producing violence and producing massive amounts of weapons.
I'm almost positive if somebody were to do a deep sea dive, this particular woman has connections with the gun control lobby. And the reason why I say that is because of what she's saying here. You see, what the gun lobby has started realizing is, and their attempts to demonize firearms in the hands of everyday citizens, they're essentially demonizing the citizens. And so what's happening is, from a PR standpoint, it's making it seem like they don't want people having the ability to protect themselves. You can't make the boogeyman the people, because you need the people to vote for the things you're trying to pass. So for the longest time, the big bad boogeyman was the NRA. And so they used the NRA as a boogeyman to scare everybody and say, we've got to stop the NRA. Now, what they've transitioned to recently was the people. They are honestly trying to make it seem like all of the people having guns is a bad idea. We shouldn't have guns. The people, the law-abiding citizens shouldn't have guns. And aptly, the gun community has pointed out Making laws for the law-abiding citizens only takes the guns away from law-abiding citizens, and the criminals still have the guns, putting us in a position where we're perpetual victims. And we've pounded and pounded and pounded that idea so far and deep into the brains of most people in society now, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I want the ability to protect myself. So now what they've done now is they've shifted. And so now what they're trying to do is make the big bad boogeyman the gun manufacturers. And the one thing that she said that made me believe that she has some ties to the gun control lobby is when she starts talking about the way guns are advertised, because that has been a new strategy from the gun control lobby in order to undermine the Second Amendment by undermining the gun industry as a whole. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so that they can use whatever marketing gun manufacturers use to promote the sale of their firearms, they can somehow utilize state laws in order to sue gun manufacturers out of existence. Now, it'd take too long for me to explain it in intimate detail. I do it in other videos that I have, but by and large, what they're now trying to do is make the gun manufacturers the boogeyman. And they're saying, no. We want people to be able to defend themselves. We just need to stop these gun manufacturers and their evil of putting out all of these guns. Well, if anybody stood back and thought for a second, they'd realize, well, if the gun manufacturers aren't able to make firearms, then we don't have the guns to defend ourselves. And so the reason why I think she has connections or ties to the gun control lobby is because no regular person is going to make that type of argument with respect to gun manufacturers. A normal person understands we need gun manufacturers in order to have the guns that we need to protect ourselves. And yes, AR-15s are protected by the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It didn't say only handguns, it said arms. You know, we talk a lot about empowerment in this country, except for when it comes to the Second Amendment. However, I can't think of anything more empowering than having the most effective tool to protect you and your family. So help me spread this message by liking and sharing this video with everyone you know. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment, because the Second Amendment, when it said militia, it wasn't talking about the government. It was talking about you. Also, if you want to know where to find the I'm the Militia shirt and merchandise, click the I'm the Militia link in the description section of this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And most importantly, make sure you hit that bell symbol.